Greetings to our Emerald Ridge learning community. I'm Dr. Angela Mills, and as the scholar of student voice in social emotional learning, it was important to hear what students had to say during the stay-at-home order in the state of Washington during COVID-19. Today, we will have a conversation on the findings from a survey we sent out to students. 460 students responded to the survey. Joining me in this conversation are Ms. Callie Hyman.
Good afternoon, my name is Callie Hyman. I am one of the school counselors at Emerald Ridge High School. I work with students with the last names M through RI and with all students in the AVID elective class. This is my second year at Emerald Ridge, my 5th year in the Puyallup School District as a counselor. I've worked at Emerald Ridge these last 2 years, the prior 2 years before that at Edgerton Elementary, and the year before that at Fruitchi Junior High. So I've worked with all 3 levels of students, K through 12, and I'm just really excited to share this information today.
Thank you, Ms. Hyman. Next, we'll have Ms. Kim Nygaard.
Hi, Kim Nygaard. I work at Emerald Ridge. I work at Rogers and I work at Glacier View this year. I'm a prevention intervention specialist, specifically drug prevention intervention specialist. My hope is to support students in their circumstances to get the best outcome possible under their circumstances, to get the most out of their education. I work with kids ages probably 11 or 12 up to 19 or 20. I've done prevention for probably 10 years, 10, 12 years now, specifically prevention intervention for the last 2 in the Puyallup School District.
Thank you, Ms. Nygaard. Moving on to Katanya McGirt.
Hi, I'm Katanya McGirt. I work with Comprehensive Life Resources in a partnership with the Puyallup School Districts. I am a licensed independent clinical social worker. I've worked in elementary schools, middle schools, high schools to help, talk about mental health and how we work with it and grow. So I'm excited for this webinar. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. McGirt. So on the outset, we talked about the importance of having student voices during this crisis time. And so I'm introducing Ms. Phoebe Martin.
Hi, I'm Phoebe Martin. I am a student at Emerald Ridge and I am graduating this year, so I am a senior.
Next student will be Lana Bradshaw.
Hi, I'm Lana Bradshaw. I am a junior at Emerald Ridge High School.
All right, well, let's start this conversation. It is important as we begin to have our conversation to think about where did we get our information from? And from the onset, we talked about sending out a student survey, and as a panel, as a team, as we were going through the results of the survey, it is important to underscore this is a significant sampling. 460 students taking the time to generate emotionally answers and responses to what's going on with them. It's particularly important to think about, we are using Castle's model with their 5 competencies with regards to self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness, because I wanted for us to get a frame as to a deeper understanding as to where we're getting how our conversation is being framed for you this afternoon. In an effort to move on, we will just talk about Ms. Hyman and lead us through Maslow's hierarchy.
Yeah, so as we have this conversation, this Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a theory that comes to mind in us, putting this lens on as we have this conversation. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a theory that shows that humans have different levels of needs and that each build upon the next level below it. So essentially, once one level of a need is met, then you can possibly move on to the next level of meeting that need. In the first level is your physiological needs, where those are just really your survival. And I think with where we're at right now with COVID in our community, just this is where we're at right now. And a lot of this has changed recently in our circumstances. Just making sure that we have food and shelter. And I think that is something that that has impacted us at this time. Moving up, then we need to address whether or not we're meeting our needs of being safe. When we feel safe, we then can, just feel protected and cared for. And I think when we're all at home right now, a big concern for me as a counselor is, are we safer at home? Are our students safer at home? And just making sure that we are indeed safe. Then from there, once you feel like those physiological needs are met and your safety needs are met, then we're able to kind of hopefully meet our needs of feeling loved and belonging. Really, this is important because we all know that our relationships with our peers, our family members, our teachers, all these relationships that we have in our life just help us feel like we belong and we're connected, and that is such an important feeling. Then we move on to the level of esteem. This is really where we feel recognized and valued by others, that we're just connected, and those are those positive emotions that help really just make us believe in ourselves and want to do well. And the very top of the pyramid is self-actualization, being able to really feel like we're living our life's purpose. And all of these levels of needs need to be met in order to meet self-actualization, which is really for students where they come to school and they're able to learn. Right now they're able to log in and they have everything they need to be learning remotely. And I think as a school right now, we've been focusing a lot on the learning, as we should be. But really, we just need to be making sure that our families' basic needs are met so that they're able to come log into school online and are able to continue the learning. So I hope that we can kind of keep this lens in mind as we have this conversation.
It's important to think about with Maslow's hierarchy. The idea going forward is how do we then phase into an understanding with COVID-19, meeting the direct needs of our learning community. And so in a direct effort, we had a needs assessment quite early, as Ms. Hyman pointed out too, with finding out the physical needs of our students. What do they need right away as this crisis hit, as we went into stay-at-home order? And so we feel as a community we have fulfilled those physical needs. And as a result of that, we began to think about, okay, if we're moving into the phase of psychosocial kind of environment, thinking in terms of that lens, the first question we wanted to pose to students regarding our survey is, what was the biggest concern they have about their learning specifically as a result of COVID-19 and how it's impacting them here at school? Ms. Hyman?
So on your screen, you'll see our data that we received from our students. These were the 4 questions that were pre-populated for students to select. So about a quarter of our students were concerned that they won't pass their current classes and that it will impact their ability to graduate. So again, another concern was that their grades will go down. And then further thinking into the future showed that they're concerned that next year they'll struggle with the content and be able to feel prepared and ready. So COVID is this current situation that we're in. Students are feeling really insecure about the impact that it's going to have on their future. And I completely understand that they're really worried about next steps and what this current situation means for the future. Lana or Phoebe, do you have any input on this specific question for students?
I know personally for me, one of my biggest concerns was the passing graduating thing, especially being a senior. It's like the thought of not graduating is really scary. And when you enter into something like this, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, like what's going to happen to my grades? And it's been really helpful knowing that our grades are frozen somewhat. But also like in terms of preparing for college, like I want to make sure that I'm still working hard and like getting the skills I need so that I can enter into college successfully. So for me, it was kind of a mix of like all of them. But I feel like the steps the school has taken in terms of like doing something like this to make sure we're getting access to the things we need to be successful in our learning has been really helpful. But there's still like that kind of like worry in there that like, oh, what if I like get a bad grade or something? Like just for my own personal gratification too. I'm like, I want to do well. So I think for me, it's just been kind of a mix of all of these.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Phoebe.
Yeah, I think it could, like, I continuously wonder, am I learning enough and will I be able to take this into next year? Because that is very important that we're learning all this information for a reason, and it's to retain it and use it in the future. But it's almost scary because you're like, am I learning all this information? Will I keep it with me? Will it benefit me next year, or will it put me behind because I wasn't really learning? I was just doing work that was given to me at home. It can be really scary because you don't really know where your grades are at right now. But I feel like the school has done a lot to help us say, hey, this is what I'm doing for your grade. This is what you need to do. This is where you're at, and I'm going to help you continue on throughout the rest of the year. So I think teachers are very supportive and helpful when it comes to that.
Thank you, Lana. As part of the process with securing these questions to students and having a student voice as their responses, Ms. Dygert is going to take us through the question that asks about how are they coping with stress and anxiety right now, specifically during our school closure.
So one of the questions that we came up with was, how are you coping with stress and anxiety during this school closure? Because that impacts everything you do. One of the things that I do specifically with students in my role is to ask them what else they can be doing. So if students are stressed, and that's one of the reasons they choose drugs and alcohol, one of the things we work on is getting something else for them to do, getting something for them to enjoy, so that meets that need that they had, and that's the reason they were doing something. So students answered, 21% said they're doing something physical, that's how they're coping. Some said they have a new hobby. If you're going outside, I know I've talked to students and that's somewhat limited by their circumstances. And then almost a third of them have answered, have they not found a good way with regards to struggling. So I thought I'd read some of the answers. We also had an other, you could answer other, and students wrote in answers. And so some of the ways that students are coping is they're working, they're running, they're spending more time with family, playing games, drawing, writing, playing basketball, reading my Bible, dancing, relaxing my mind, music, gardening, home projects, talking with friends safely, reading, hobbies, time with pets. Several people said pets, or walking their pets, or playing with their pets, or just cuddling with them. Finishing homework was a stress relief for some. Going to the store is able, learning the piano, learning something new, and video calling from friends. And I thought maybe Lana, Phoebe, if you have something that you can share that has helped, or reiterate some of the things that other students said, input.
For me, I've been doing a lot of like running and working out because I feel like I was always involved in sports and stuff. So that's a really good way that I can like clear my mind, and it just gets me like chilled out and calm, and gives me like 2 hours a day where I can just zone out and focus on myself. And I've also kind of picked up new hobbies. Like I've just been trying everything because I don't want to just be sitting here like thinking too much about what's going on. So for me, it's been like a mix of hobbies and working out and FaceTiming with my friends.
Yeah, a big thing for me is I've been taking time to do things I wouldn't do before, like cooking. Usually it's just like, oh, eat something fast. But now it's like, hey, let me make something for myself. Let me make a cup of coffee. Let me do this. Taking more time to do things genuinely, and also working. Working has been really helpful for me. It can be stressful worrying about how many assignments you have, or when is everything due, and what teacher wants you to do what, and what Zoom meetings when. But when I'm at work, it's like, okay, I don't have to worry about that right now. It's what I'm doing then at that moment. And it's just kind of a few hours of being with my coworkers and people who are very supportive, and focusing on something that I know I'm good at. And so that's just a way that I kind of relieve my stress.
I think that's a really good point, Lana, is that those that have work have another group of support, a support system. So like I work for an agency called Heidi's Promise, and then I also work in the school district. So I have, during this time, I have two sets of support systems. And so it's really nice sometimes when students have that also, when they have more than just that one supporting service. And Phoebe, I think it's great that you've been doing physical things so that you keep up. And I think that's a huge benefit to keep physically healthy too.
One of the things that we wanted to do with this conversation is not just come to have a conversation, but to look at the data, look at what students were responding, and have a conversation with the idea of bringing some responses that were positive to you to be able to say, oh, wait a minute, oh, I can try this, or so that we are indeed providing some answers, an avenue for you to be thinking about, oh, I didn't think about this, as Phoebe's alerting to, carving out some time specific to exercise. Olana is referring to, I got an opportunity to try a new recipe. Doing something that will occupy the time in a positive way, and not stressed out, in a negative capacity in terms of thinking, oh man, I'm stuck. Ms. Nygaard, do you want to lead us through to the next slide that talks about the specific social and emotional issues?
Absolutely. So when we did the survey, we asked students, what do you want us to focus on? Is it self-management? Is it self-awareness, relationship skills, decision-making, social awareness? And a huge majority of the students, 40%, said they wanted us to focus on self-management. There was 24 that said self-awareness, and 17 relationship skills, 11 decision-making, and 8% said in general social awareness. So in hopes of supporting that, if you want to go to the next slide, Ms. Hyman. In hopes of supporting that, I looked up how to accomplish something. What is a format or a framework to accomplish something? And I noticed that there's a goal setting system called SMART. It's specific, setting a goal that's specific, that's measurable, that's attainable, that's relevant, and it's time bound. And the idea is that if you write something down, it can be helpful to be able to look back and see that you've accomplished it because it's in writing. And the SMART system is used by a lot of businesses, but can also be applied to home. It can be applied to personal goals. It can be applied to school. So if we want to go to the next slide. It's a carry-on. This kind of explains it. So when we say specific, and in order to know that you've crossed the finish line, you need to know exactly what you want to accomplish. So perhaps you have 20 math problems and you want to turn in your assignment on time, and the assignment's due on Friday. So then a measurable, you can use smaller mini goals to measure that progress. So you can say, well, I'm going to do 5 of the math problems each day. And if you keep that pace, I guess, if you do 5 a day, is that reasonable? Probably it's reasonable to do 5 a day. And does it pertain to you? Is it relevant? Yeah, you want to get your math turned in on time. So then you set a time, okay, I'll get done with 5 problems by 1 o'clock on Tuesday and 5 problems by 1 o'clock on Wednesday, etc. And then by Friday, you've attained your goal, and it's simple and it's not overwhelming you. And that's sort of what the SMART system is set up to help you do, to state exactly what you want to do, to measure it. So using increments of either time or numbers. And then, is it attainable? Is it a reasonable goal for you? So like, I would not set a goal of running 5 miles ever. I don't run. I can't. I had just had 2 knees replaced. So that wouldn't be reasonable to me. But a reasonable goal for me might be walking 5 miles by the end of summer or something like that. So is it reasonable? And then also a time bound. So like I said, the end of summer, make a time limit for yourself so that you can look to it, not to stress you out, but so you can look to it and see, I've done that. I've taken that. I've taken that on and I've managed that.
I think this is really helpful for me, because on Monday we get all of our assignments for school. You know, all of our teachers email us and say, this is what you have to do by Friday. And you write all that stuff down or you put it in a note and you're just like, this is a lot of stuff. You know, you got 2 labs due, you have this report due, you have this essay due, and you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can do that. But if you kind of split it up a little bit and say, well, maybe I'll finish this tonight, and then I'll do this math homework on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, I'll finish that science lab. And then everything throughout the week slowly is done, and it's more manageable, and you're not as stressed out on Thursday, like, oh my gosh, now all this stuff is due, because you have everything done and you paced yourself, and setting those smaller goals made it seem so much more attainable. And so I think this is really helpful, and this is something I use on a weekly basis.
Good for you. Phoebe, input?
For me, this is kind of one of the things I struggled with at first, because I was in 5 AP classes this year, so the workload is kind of insane. So when I first got into like managing my own time, getting everything on a Monday and having the whole week to kind of just pace myself, it was a little bit scary, and I definitely struggled with it at first. I definitely left a lot of things till the night before. But as I realized that is not smart, using something like this has been extremely helpful. Like, I don't think I recognized it exactly as the SMART goals, but I definitely was doing something like this. Like, I would be, I'll be like, okay, on Tuesday I'm going to do my lit work. On Wednesday I'm going to do some stats. Like, I would break it up by class, which made it easier. And I would also, like, I would make an effort to, like, I'm not in school, so I'm not confined by the school day. Like, I don't have to stop at 2:20 anymore, like, stop my classwork. Like, I would break it up throughout the day. I would take a break in the middle of the day and go do something else. I would, like, do it all throughout the day, so I didn't feel like I was sitting down and having to work so hard for like one period of time. And breaking it up like that, like throughout the day and throughout the week, is what made it way easier for me. And so it was kind of following a model like this, but I just didn't realize it.
You know,
You're both
it's
ahead of
important to be
yourself.
thinking about, you know, the schedule and the routine. And I know Ms. Nygaard has another slide that she's going to talk about, but listening to Lana and listening to Phoebe just struck me with the idea as an adult, you know, we too fall into that rut of, wait a minute. For an example, you know, I was talking to my family members. The idea for me of working at home, I'm at school every day, I'm doing something, coming to, I was in a rut, and I was totally out of my game in terms of, you know, I'm not in the zone, because I would come downstairs and sit to begin to do work and then become distracted with doing something else. And until I realized, wait a minute, prepare yourself as though you're coming downstairs to go out to the car and head out to school. So I'd get up, get ready, so that I can function that way, and in essence have like something like Phoebe was alluding to, I was doing a SMART goal without knowing that it was a SMART goal, because I would have some little check boxes and I write a little list, and it's okay, yep, by the end of the day, I want to get all of these things done. So for us adults as well, I want you to recognize, to our listening audience, we too are having, some problems in terms of, where do we find that scheduling? Where do we find that routine? And trial and error, we made a decision. Ms. Nygaard?
So I think that it's fine to use any system that works, but it sounds like you've already set systems in place, which is awesome. And encourage other people to do the same, that they have things that they can accomplish too. A different way of looking at things, a little bit different way, go ahead, Kelly, is thinking in a different from a different perspective. These are called beautiful questions. There's just a few of them here, but sometimes we need to look at life in just a little bit different way. If you ask questions of yourself, so for instance, the first one is, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And if you ask that of yourself, it puts your brain in a different light. It sends your brain in a different direction. And I know, Lonnie, you had some things to share about some of the questions. There's actually 6 questions, so it's 2 slides. We'll have more than one opportunity. But did you want to share what you had to say about the beautiful questions?
Yeah, my favorite question was the "How are you really?" question. I think that a lot of the times we're just like, okay, I'm doing this, it's what I'm doing, and I don't really have a choice. And so you just kind of keep going and you just don't think about how you're feeling or what's going on. And especially now, the people we can talk to, especially face to face, is very limited. And so we're losing connections with people and we miss people. And I think I was at work the other day. Like I said, work is something that has saved me a lot through this. And one of my coworkers goes, "No, how are you?" And I was like, I'm okay. And he was like, "No, like, how are you really? I haven't seen you in a really long time and it's good to see you again." And I was like, to be honest, I'm kind of stressed out because I am working every other day or every day, and I do have school still. And I feel like the "how are you" question has become such a topic filler, just a way to start a conversation, but nobody really wants to know. But right now, I think asking this genuine question would help so many people. If you just say, "How are you?" really? And I think that people will open up a little bit more and say, "You know what? I'm really stressed out because I haven't been working lately and I have bills to pay." Or, "Right now I'm not in school and so all this schoolwork is really hard to manage and I can't talk to my teachers the way I would." And once we start opening up about that to ourselves or to other people, we can realize, like, hey, this is what I need and this is what I'm going to do to find a way to get that. So that's what I really like about that question.
And Phoebe, did you have anything to add?
For me, these are kind of different. I think about them a little bit differently because the way I am when I'm put in a stressful situation, I definitely just joke about it. So having these more serious questions that I can actually use to kind of check in with myself and like see how I'm actually doing are really helpful, because for me, I just joke about everything. So getting these to actually have a nice little like check-in and like check in with myself, I think that's really helpful. And I really like them. I like the "how are you really" question as well.
Well, for the next slide, if there was a solution to your anxiety, how would it look? So that's a little bit of what we're trying to address with like the management question. Why are you worth knowing? And that can let your mind just wander to all the things that you have, the capacities and the capabilities. And then when was the last time you did something for the first time? This is actually something I use frequently with students when I'm talking to them in my office, because when you do something that's exciting or something that you like, whether it's eating something or making something or carefully doing something adventurous new, riding a dirt bike if you've never ridden a dirt bike, or anything that's new, it gives you chemicals that are released into your system that give you that sense of natural high, and they're already in your body. There's dopamine, there's serotonin, there's oxytocin, there's endorphins, there's cortisol. Dopamine is one that's when you embrace a new goal, but you can get a little bit of those chemicals all along when you think about a new goal, or when you plan to do a new goal, or when you have the capacity to. So for instance, maybe you plan to do it but you don't have a bike yet, so then when you save to get the bike, and then when you realize you can get the bike, and then when you actually get it, all these steps along the way give you that little sense of woohoo. And so it gives you a little bit of natural chemicals in your system to help you counteract some of the stress or some of the anxiety. It doesn't have to be something like buying a new bike. It can be something simple like planting a flower, but you plan where to put it, and you buy the whatever $2 flower, and then you nurture it every day, and then you get to watch it grow and you get to watch it bloom. It can be really simple, but it still gives you that natural high that counteracts some of the stress and anxiety. And you can become an expert at it if you choose to, or you can just enjoy it. Lana, Phoebe, thoughts? Callie, Katanya, Mr. Mills? Input?
I think that the idea of like the first time thing is really sweet, kind of, and it reminds me of like when we first started this and I was like trying to pick up new hobbies. It wasn't necessarily for the first time, but I picked up like my guitar for the first time in probably like 2 years, and I started painting again, and I found it was kind of like another first time in doing all these things and like going along and doing that and planning. And I remember I painted a pair of shoes. I was like, I've never painted a pair of shoes. That would be kind of fun. And so I was like, okay, now I have something new to focus on. And it kind of like, I don't know, it just made me happy having something else to focus on. And I could go pick out what colors I was going to use. And then I could go and just seeing it when it was like from start to finish, just like rediscovering something that I used to love was super stress relieving. And it was just like a really good experience. And it made me kind of like want to continue rediscovering all my favorite hobbies.
Yeah, I've been drawing again, and that's something I love to do because when you start, it's nothing, and then when you're done, it's something, and you're like, wow, I did that. That's amazing. And then a new thing that I've recently started is I've become obsessed with plants. I started growing these green onions because I had used them in one of my recipes, and I was like, I wonder if I can grow these again. And so I Googled it and I found a way, and now every morning I open my blinds and they get taller and taller and taller, and it's just really exciting because it's like I'm doing that and I'm nurturing this. Or I have a fern that I have been watering every single day, and you watch these plants grow and get healthier, and you know you're in some way aiding in that. And so I think that's really cool, and I feel like it's a way that I'm like, okay, I need to do this or my plant's gonna die. I need to take care of it. This is something I have to focus on and pay attention to, and in the end there's an amazing outcome. So that's something that just makes me really, really happy.
Good for you. Other input?
I actually just started a garden myself for the first time, and it's amazing. I feel that with you, Lana. It's like, oh wow, look at they're sprouting, they're growing. I fed them. I didn't kill them all yet. It's amazing.
A nice sense of accomplishment, and no one has to become an expert at what they're doing. You can choose to, but enjoy the moment. Include others without fear of reproach or disapproval. And it's okay to laugh when you make mistakes. And it's so, like Tanya, you haven't killed them all yet. I feel that way with my plants. I look out and I'm like, ah, they're still there. They're still alive. Look at that. And it's exciting. And that also can alleviate some of that stress and anxiety. It's okay to be happy where you're at. Although there's this horrible pandemic going on around us and we see lots of things, lots of stressors and lots of anxiety causing things, it's okay to be happy in the moment. It's okay to have that joy. And it's okay to take a simple pleasure and then share it with somebody, because maybe that's something that they need also.
Yeah, actually, that's just really funny because I was looking at my green onions and I was like, oh my gosh, they're growing. And I have a little hamster. I just got him like a month ago, and his name is Ponyo. And I was like, Ponyo, look at my green onions, right? I was holding him, and they're on my windowsill, and he usually wanders around my room. I have like a little container thing that he goes in, and he was next to my green onions. He looks at me and he takes a big bite out of one of them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, my green onions. But then you just said, share it with somebody, maybe they'll find joy in that. And that just is what it made me think of, because he took a bite out of it and he ran. He was out of there, and I was like, oh my gosh. But I thought that was something funny and that I could share with you guys.
Good for you. And it's good to laugh in the moment. I mean, it could have been a crisis if you only had one green onion growing and he just like bit it. But it's good to laugh. It's good to enjoy the moment. And so don't hesitate to do that, even though there's other things that are stressful. It doesn't mean you're not appreciating other people's stress and anxiety. It just means maybe you have a little joy to share so that they have a little less stress and anxiety.
I like what Ms. Nygaard says about, being happy in the moment. My wife is on the front line. She works in the hospital system, and so with me, the upside to this is at the high school. About now, we'd be getting into all of the nighttime activities because it's busy time of the year that we've just come down from. Sporting activities, nighttime, to getting ready for graduation and all of the accoutrement that goes with that. So imagine now that I am home before she gets home. And so, we were talking the other night and I said to her, hey, you're being spoiled because every night you come home, there's dinner made, we sit as a family, we have, a meal together. What happens after COVID? We get ready to go work. So being happy in the moment, just to be able to share those little thoughts and have a laugh about it. Last night after dinner, we were all sitting in the sitting room, and I realized, wait a minute, there's a bird flying back and forth underneath the a little patio area that we have. And so I went out there with a flashlight, and here come the children. What is Daddy doing out there with a flashlight? And there's up in the shelving, there is a nest with a bird feeding. And I'm like, oh, wow, we would have never been able to take time to the little things. Like Lana was referring to, the little things about, the hamster chomping at the onion, and you having a moment just to enjoy that and laugh about it. Yeah.
One thing that made me think of Dr. Mills was just how it's okay to feel however you're feeling right now, whether that's you're just not feeling okay right now, verbalize that and tell someone you need some support, or that you are feeling happy and it's okay to laugh even though we're in this serious situation right now. Just feeling however you're feeling and embracing that. It's important.
And then getting the help you need if you recognize that how you're feeling isn't safe. Reach out to somebody. Get somebody else involved in that conversation, because oftentimes once you verbalize it, you have your own answers. It doesn't have to be a crisis, but if you stay in your own head, sometimes it can spiral in a bad way. So reach out to your best friend, to your parents, to one of the counselors, to counseling services. Reach out to somebody that you know is going to give you feedback that you can trust. so that you're not in a bad place.
That is important to underscore, Ms. Nygaard, because part of the conversations, like we say from the onset, is to be able to provide some opportunities for you to get some answers, some real answers, some tangible look-fors. And so we wanted to make sure that you're putting a face to this conversation. So at the end of this, you'll be able to say, oh, wait a minute. Ms. Nygaard has some contact information. I could reach out to her. This is a learning community. We're all in this together at this point. And that prompts me to the next slide that talks about what types of support you need from your parent or guardian at this time. 26% of our students from answering the survey says they need some alone time. And thinking about that, not in a selfish way of saying, I need to be alone right now, but thinking in terms of allowing your family members an opportunity for space. We're home, we're in a confined environment. Some families may not have the luxury of living in a 5,000 square foot house. So, you may be in an apartment house. So be thinking of all of those little intricacies and say, you know what, I recognize that, my teenage son needs a little alone time right now. Let me give you a little personal anecdote from me as a parent. I would come home every day because I have school-age children, and I would come home every day, and I found myself, and it took me a while to get to this point. I found myself coming home and asking the question, how much work did you get done today? To the point that for me feeling defeated and to some extent frustrated, and I was having these hard conversations with my 12-year-old. And over the course of probably about 2 weeks, I realized, wait a minute, that is not what I want for my 12-year-old to remember that to have been like during this time, especially during COVID, but more importantly, just time in general, spending time with my father. And so after some reflection, I realized, wait a minute, I asked the question, what did you learn today? So we have an opportunity now at dinner for every meal or when we sit down or whatever it is to be able to say, hey, what did you learn today? And has become a natural flow of conversation because I no longer have to ask the question about learning and on opportunities for growth for that day, because they would say to me, Dad, we were watching whatever and it looked like it was analogous to like the Holocaust. And I say, hey, show me this video that you were looking at. And just to have a conversation along those lines. So specific words to parents who are listening to our conversation, give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace, specifically at this time to know it's okay. Your son, Johnny, and Susie will be okay. It is our responsibility as teachers to get them back up to where they need to be. And we're working hard to plan ahead, coming back to the fall and winter, to get them there. But in the meantime, think of learning opportunities as being very broad. Take time for that. Students are asking for, I want more time, just help with coping with my stress. And if it means that you have an opportunity for, take one child out to say, hey, let's go for a walk, let's go for a bike ride, let's go out and, dig out in the yard for a little bit, plant something together. It means that you're spending time, because we're lead so busy lives prior to COVID-19. Here's an opportunity for us to stop, to be able to form that family unit and get to know our children. And not that I want to present myself as ever thinking to be forward enough to say to you how to run your household. That is not what the message what I want to impart here. I want to say to you, allow yourself some grace to be able to develop that relationship with your children at home at this time.
So, Mr. Mills, would it be okay if I shared some of the other responses that students had?
Yeah, please.
So some of the, another part of the, most of the questions we had a fifth answer, which was other. And some students said they don't need anything at this time, they're doing well. And others say they need help coordinating that balance between doing school online and keeping engaged. Others said all of the above, they need support with all the above. Some said my household peers are very supportive. Some said, you know, their parent bought them a stuffed animal and that was just what they needed in the moment. More understanding about the stressors that the students have specifically. Some said I don't need support. Some said my parents are doing great and they're helping me. And some said, you know, they do what they need to, and I tell them if they needed help. So if your students aren't asking for parents that are on, if your students aren't asking, they may be okay right now, and they might be doing well. It's okay to ask them more than once, because you know you might be doing different in the morning than you are in the afternoon. But some of them say they're doing fine. They don't need anything. They're good. So that's encouraging too.
From Phoebe, Yolanda, any thoughts?
When I answered that question on the survey, I know that I answered alone time, but it's like I just need it in the sense that normally, under normal circumstances, I would come home from school and I would usually go out with my friends or something, and I would go do something fun. And so now, since I can't do that, like the time that I would normally be having to myself or with my friends, just out like doing whatever I wanted, just having fun, like I can't do that in the normal way I would. So now I'm like, okay, I just need my own space, and I just need to have a little bit of time throughout the day where I can focus on myself rather than like chores or school or anything else. Like it's replacing that like social time that I had before with like time just where I can like recharge and have my own space.
For me, so when I answered that question, I'm pretty sure I put in other, and I just said, you know, my dad works during the day and I'm at home, and then I go to work and he comes home. So it's like we always kind of miss each other. And so whenever we get the chance and I have a day off, or on the weekends, it's, hey, let's watch this show together because we've been watching it since quarantine. Or, hey, let's play this game together because it's what we like to do. And having that time, especially right now, I haven't seen any of my friends in a couple of months. And so my dad's always like, hey, let's, you know, do something together. So I think that's very encouraging. And I also try to be very open with him about my schoolwork, and I say, hey, this is what I'm doing right now. I have this test right now, or this class is kind of stressing me out and it's really hard. And he's been very good at saying, okay, you know, just make sure you're keeping on track, and if you need help, just ask. And so he's being very supportive, and I know some students don't have that, and everybody needs something different, but for me, my dad's a really amazing support.
Phoebe, do you have anything else to add?
Not really. I think that for me, like my biggest support system is like my mom and my friends. So it's kind of the same thing, just different people. And like my friends and I have done a really good job at staying in contact throughout all of this with like FaceTime and texting and all that. So that's been really helpful and encouraging.
I think one of the biggest things I'm hearing just from listening to our students speak, and when I think about the data that we got from the surveys, it's just really apparent that everyone needs something differently. And I think it's just taking some time to reflect on, you know, so how am I feeling? What do I need because I'm feeling that way? And just realizing that just because one person needs one thing doesn't mean that someone else doesn't need something else, and that's okay. Just doing what you need and knowing that that's okay. Our next slide that we're on right now, these were a couple of additional questions that were on our student survey. The first, what are you doing to stay connected to your peers during COVID-19? A big trend was obviously that students are communicating through some kind of device. 45% with social media, 20% are communicating over video chat, so FaceTime or Zoom. 8% are meeting up in social distancing safely, and 20% answered that they were not connecting with peers, which is concerning. Phoebe or Lana, do you have any perspective on how your peers are communicating at this time?
I know I've seen a lot of people communicating through social media, FaceTime, I've seen a lot of meeting up at like safe social distances. I know my friends and I like to go get coffee or bring coffee to home and we'll park across from each other and just talk, because that face-to-face interaction is really, really important. And it's like, I think that the more that those who aren't reaching out start to, I don't know, text their friends, check in, I feel like that could also be a really big stress reliever for them, because even though we're supposed to be completely on our own during this time, or not completely, but like physically on our own this time, there's still ways to like interact with your friends and make sure that you're not losing touch. And especially as a senior, I feel like it's really, really important, because a lot of these people that I'm friends with at school, we're going to different colleges, and we already had our last day of high school without really knowing it. So for us, it's been really important to keep in touch and just continue talking to each other so that we can continue to have these friend groups through the summer, kind of before we go off to college.
Yeah, Phoebe, what I think is really important is to just remember that social distancing doesn't have to equal social isolation, right? So I liked what you said about checking in with your friends and being more intentional about making sure that everyone's doing okay. Lana, the next question, maybe you could address this one. What specifically do you need from your teachers right now? It seems like there was a lot of positive feedback from students in the data, but a couple of trends that showed were just some personal connection and support. And I think that's something that when students are coming to our building, they're getting that one-on-one attention from their teachers, but that looks different in our virtual learning. What do you think about that question specifically?
Yeah, teachers have been really good with communicating with students. They've been putting out an email every day saying, hey, maybe you could get this done today. Maybe you can get this done today. Remember, this is all due by Friday. I think that personal connection is very important, though. Sometimes with all the emails coming in, things can get lost, or Zoom meeting dates can be forgotten and missed, or you have another meeting and you have this due and you have to work on this, so you can't come to that. And so everything kind of gets blurred and you're like, wait, I was supposed to do that? And everything can get really confusing and hard, and we don't have our teachers there in front of us and we can't raise our hand and ask them a question. But one of my teachers recently emailed me and he said, hey, you're doing a great job right now. Don't worry about it. Just make sure you get all this stuff done. I'm here if you need help, and we'll make sure we finish out this year clean. And that was one of the classes I was really stressed about. And when he emailed me that, I was like, it was kind of a relief to me. And though I don't walk into his room every day and say good afternoon to him anymore, he's still there and he's still very supportive, and he's doing his best to teach us what he can online. And so I think teachers are doing a very good job of just staying connected, making sure they can do what they making sure they are doing what they can to help everybody out.
Awesome. The final question on this slide is, what is your daily routine since COVID-19 school closure? And I know from me just checking in with my students, since this began, everything is very different from where things were a couple months ago. I think the biggest impact that I've heard from students is their sleep schedule, that things just kind of seem a little backwards. Do either of you have any insight on how your daily routine is different?
My routine is definitely a lot different. I mean, I'm no longer waking up at 6 a.m. and staying up super late to do homework, which honestly is really nice. I feel like one bright side of this, just kind of looking at it in a positive light, is that I am no longer sleep deprived. So I'm like finding time where I can go to bed at a reasonable hour and I can wake up at a reasonable hour, and then I can still get everything done because I'm not really as confined during the day by a schedule. So I've definitely been like blocking out parts of my day for exercise and for homework and kind of creating like a schedule that works for me. And so it's been really nice because it also gives me kind of preparation for when I get to college. Like it's going to be a lot more self-management when it comes to like what I'm doing with my day. And it's kind of set me up for that. And I know that like for a lot of the students, like sophomores, juniors, that's not really like a concern yet. But for me, at least, it's been really helpful. And getting more sleep has definitely helped.
I definitely know my experience has been a little backwards. Instead of not knowing what to do at first and then slowly getting the hang of it, when everything first happened, I was like, this is great, you know, and I was still waking up early every single morning, and then I'd eat breakfast, and then I'd do schoolwork, and then I'd do whatever I wanted the rest of the day. But now, as time has just moved on, it's like, oh no, it's 2 in the morning. What happened? You know, or you don't start work until later, or you do this different times. And so every day has looked different for me. Some mornings I do still wake up at 7 in the morning, and then other mornings I wake up in the afternoon, and it's like, what happened? I don't know. So it does look different every day. I think just an important thing is making sure you're still doing what you need to do. Like, yeah, you woke up a little bit later, but you can still do your schoolwork maybe 2 hours after the time you usually do it. Like if you start at 12 usually, well, just start at 2 and keep it on that same schedule. Even if things didn't go as planned throughout the day, make sure you can still kind of do what you just have to.
Right, absolutely. I think one of the reasons why our routine seems to have changed is because our responsibilities have shifted. So a lot of students, one of our questions addressed, what additional responsibilities do you have at home now? Which with additional responsibilities makes sense that your routine would be needing to change also. And so here we have our results. 41% of students shared that they have additional chores at home. 28% said that nothing really changed for them. They don't have any additional responsibilities. 15% of students that responded said that they either started a new job or they've started to get more hours. And 10% shared that they're taking care of their siblings. So I think that makes sense when we're at home and everyone, routines have changed, parents' responsibilities have changed as well. The family's going to come together and pick up the slack where it needs to be taken. So I think that makes sense. Do either of you have any input on how your lives have changed responsibility-wise, or any of your peers?
I definitely have some more like household responsibilities. We also got a new puppy, so that's a lot of responsibility. Just like waking up early, taking care of it, taking it for walks. So that's been like a fun responsibility, but I also have a lot more chores and I have a lot more time, so it's not really irritating at all. It's not anything like super crazy, but just kind of like picking up the slack around the house, and because both my parents are working from home, so they're still working and they're still busy. So helping take care of my little brother, like he's 12, so he doesn't really need a lot, but just kind of like those little household things. It's just like slightly more, but it's not crazy.
I definitely think I haven't really taken on much. I still do the things I've always done around the house, or I'm still working just about the same hours. I do see, though, like when I am at work, I have a lot of my managers or coworkers who have younger children, about 9, 7, 8, 9 years old, and they're constantly stressed about babysitters, or who's going to watch my kid because they're not in school right now. And so their hours have changed a lot, and they're like, well, I can't work today because I have to take care of, you know, my daughter, and her babysitter can't watch her. And so I've seen it affect a lot of parents with younger students. And as a high schooler, I drive, I work, you know, I have my own responsibilities apart from my parents. And so this hasn't affected me too much, but I do know that the parents with younger students have to change a lot of what they do with work, or just having, especially if you have multiple kids at home, food is a big thing. Will they all be fed now that they're not in school getting food from there? Like, can I provide that? Is that and so I've just noticed that a lot of people have been stressed about that as well.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, the empathetic tone with your response. I think there has been a lot of change for everyone. And so I think, yeah, it's just affecting everyone in a different way. So it's important for us to all realize as a community so that we can support each other.
Hey, Phoebe, I was just thinking about, for Phoebe and Lana, what words of wisdom do you have to your peers right now, specifically around self-management, one of the competencies of the social emotional learning? Because it seems as though you've kind of trial and error, you got it together, and now you're kind of managing your pace as you go. You know, to the person who's still struggling in terms of creating that self-management, what words of wisdom do you have for them?
I would just say that it's okay to not know exactly what you're going to do. I would say that it's okay to take time for yourself. And if you need to like take a day off and just start with a blank slate and just go back into it and say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to start this. Like tomorrow I'm going to implement this schedule. I'm just going to start completely new. That's what I did at one point, and it made me feel a lot better, just like knowing that it's okay to take a day off and it's okay to start over, kind of in a sense. I think that it helps a lot, and just like not being so hard on yourself in this time because it's hard for everyone. So you gotta cut yourself some slack, and you have to like realize that this is hard to like transition into because it's a scary situation. Like nothing like this has ever happened before. Well, it has, but not in our lifetime. So like it's okay to be struggling right now.
Yeah, that's definitely what I do. On Mondays, I get all of the work I need to do, and I kind of just take that day to say, okay, I know I have to do all this, and I'll plan it out for the rest of the week. I don't do much Mondays, but just look at what I have. And every night before I go to bed, or, you know, whenever I have the chance, I'll go through everything I need to do and say, okay, well, this is due tomorrow and this is due tomorrow, so I'll make sure I wake up and get this done. And then, well, I also have to work tomorrow, and oh, I'm gonna go meet this person tomorrow, or I have to do this. And so just kind of knowing what you have to do, even if it's not exactly, oh, at 2 I'll do this, and at 3 I'll do this, and 4 I'll do this, but it's just like, okay, yeah, I'll do this tomorrow. I'll get there when I get there. You know, take a deep breath. Not everything has to be in a box, and you can take that time to relax and focus on yourself as well.
Thank you. I think it's important to, you know, to have that student perspective specifically here, because I know probably that's one of the areas that other students are struggling with, you know, the idea of, you know, managing this time. You know, before there was a bell, before the, you know, to class, we are in the hallway, the teacher's in the hallway prodding you along, and now you get up and, oh, you sit at your desk and in front of a computer, and okay, I think I can do something else now. So it's important to hear your perspectives. You know, part of on the onset to this conversation, we began by talking about we did a needs assessment to find out what are the physical needs of our student population. And we thought we had that kind of under control. And so as we're looking into the psychosocial kind of aspects now, specifically to this conversation as around the emotional needs. And it's important to underscore here that the folks on this panel having this conversation at this current time are all folks who deal directly with the emotional impact, and to be able to support students in that sphere, as it were. So, Ms. McGirt, could you talk to us a little bit about, there's a question that asks, what specific emotional need do you currently have?
As regards to the children needing support from others or themselves, could you?
Yeah, you can take any spin you want on this.
Okay. Well, with emotional support, sometimes I hear kiddos, they don't want to talk to anyone about it because they feel like it's going to bring them down even further, the other person. So my mom or my dad, they have this at work, you know, they come home saying, oh, this is how my day went, X, Y, and Z. So now I don't want to share that with my parents, what I'm going through, because I think it's so small compared to what they already have going on, which it's kind of on the opposite side. It's huge with the kiddo, even though an adult may feel that it's, you know, minute. It would be helpful to listen to your child because they need to be heard. They're trying to express themselves versus holding it all in. And something that can be harmful is, sorry guys, but you think that's a big deal? Well, try having a job and taking care of these children, which will minimize a child, and then they're not going to want to speak out and share any kind of their feelings with anyone. So at the same time, while you're frustrated, parents, you can share that with your child and then know that they have some as well. So it's like, yeah, I totally understand how you can be feeling that way. What do you need from me? Or what can I do to help? And sometimes if they're like, you know, there's nothing we can do, we're isolated, I just want to talk to you about it. I just want to, you know, get that off my chest that I'm struggling and having a hard time. So validation is super important, I feel.
What say the students about this? Any contribution from Lana or Phoebe? Any thoughts?
I think the validation piece is really, really important. I think not minimizing whatever your kid is feeling is really important. And I think listening and just like being there and not comparing your struggles. Like I think that's super important. You have to understand that like our struggles are just as valid and they're seem just as big to us. So I think taking the time to understand that and just have a little bit of empathy and sympathy is really, really important and much needed.
Yeah, I think that some parents right now could say, well, you're at home all day now. You know, you don't go to school anymore. You're not waking up early. All you do is sleep. You know, you're not doing your schoolwork. And I think that can definitely hurt students because they are getting a lot of work from teachers and they do have a lot of responsibilities still, and it may not be shown because it's over a computer screen, and that's almost seen as not doing anything. And so I think that, like what was mentioned earlier, when parents come home and say, well, I have to work all day and I wake up early in the morning and I don't get home till late and then I have to take care of the kids and I have to do this, and students are just feeling not heard because they are at home all day, and so they can't say, well, but they do have work and it's hard to kind of verbalize, well, I am doing a lot of stuff and I do have this I have to take care of and I have this I have to take care of, and yes, it may be different because I'm at home, but I'm still doing it and I'm still struggling. And I think that the communication part is very important, and just being able to verbalize and say, well, I was trying to do this, but it's really hard from home and I just need your help. or I just like you to be there for me, or I would like you not to say that I'm not doing anything all day because I am. And I'm constantly reading my novel that I have to get done by the end of the month, or I'm constantly doing this, but you don't see that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hyman, the slide that talks about on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your current mental health? Could you elaborate a little bit about the findings there?
Absolutely. So students were able to answer this on a scaling slide from 1 to 10. 1 being feeling the best possible, and 10 feeling like their mental health had been impacted to the highest level. And as you can see for the data here, about 38 students responded feeling out of 10. That's very concerning, I think, just in that as we move down, 24 students with a level 9, and then I see a really strong answer for feeling around a 7 or an 8. In my head, when I think of this question, usually students, if they respond around a 5, that's like, I'm okay, I'm definitely impacted. Anything above that, I think we could assume is a negative impact, that their feelings definitely a pretty negative impact on their mental health because of the school closure and where we're at with COVID. And I think I feel like this is alarming, and I think that it shows that there is a need there, and that we just need to continue this conversation. I think it's really important that this webinar is happening right now, but then also that we continue this conversation and just continue to educate the community, but also come together as school community. I think Emerald Ridge is a really unique community where people are very tight knit, and we have that ability to be there for each other. So I think it comes down to, 1, knowing that people are struggling, and this was anonymous, so I think that takes away some of the stigma of having to say this verbally or tell someone to their face that this is anonymous. I think that this is probably really accurate data based on the fact that 460 students were able to do this anonymously. Katanya McGirt, you might have some more input on this. What do you think?
Yes, I think this is alarming as well as far as the scale here. For someone being impacted so heavily, then the question comes in, okay, so what is happening? What are we doing to address those needs of our children? Do we know that they're feeling this way? If so, or if not, we've got to look into that, because some people, when they reach out for help, if they don't get it, then that's less likely that they're going to reach out in the future. Or who would I turn to? Or they feel like, well, telling them, all they're going to say is suck it up. Or if I tell them, what's going to change? Like, there's nothing that can be done, when in fact there is. So this is kind of, it's alarming, and it saddens me a little bit. A lot of it, I take that back. It saddens me a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
Ms. Nygaard, could you talk a little bit about this, specifically around the work that you do, and the kind of prohibitive kind of stance we can get down to? Nobody wants to open that can of worms, but just having a conversation around, hey, listen to your children because they're saying this.
So when I look at this scale, when over 50% of the kids, and I was doing my math quickly, it's like 55, 56% of the kids are over a 5. That's an indication that half, if our sample population is indicative of the whole population, that means over half of our students are saying they could use some help. And that's a big deal. And so proactively, one of the things, whether you're a student or a parent, like Lana was saying earlier, and Phoebe, check in with your friends, interact with your friends, have a social group, whether it's online, whether it's Facebook, whether it's social distancing, whether it's at work. Have a group of people in that you can interact with, that even if they don't ask you, how are you really, tell them. Know that there's at least one person, and I email my students on a weekly basis and say that, how are you? And and then give them some encouragement, because that's what I've gotten back as feedback is they need encouragement. Students need encouraging. So if you're a student, ask other students, how are you really? Or what's something that you're looking forward to in the coming days? Or what's something positive that's happened in your day? If you're a parent, check in with your kids. Check in and see. And maybe not just ask the question, but spending time together can give you more insight than sometimes asking the question. Even if it's something that you're doing around the house, cook together, or at our house we play board games. We Yahtzee or, you know, Uno or anything, just to get that time where it's not about, are you succeeding, are you not doing well? It's just get them away from focusing on the hard things that are going on around them. And sometimes turn the TV off, turn the news off. It's good to get the latest, it's good to be up to date on what is going on in your world, but maybe if you're listening to the news, talk about, you know, it's going to be sunny for the next 10 days. Having something to look forward to is really critical, I think, in this time with what's going on with kids.
Thank you. So from a Ms. Catania, from a mental health point of view, could you talk to us a little bit about what's going on? What are the facts about adolescent mental health at this time? Well, what's going on?
Kiddos are isolating, they're shutting down, they're not knowing what to do, it's confusing, it's scary, and then there are maladaptive ways of coping where parents aren't at home, so I'm just going to get a little bit of this drink that I see them drinking when they need to calm down and relax, and then that's the way for them to mask some of their feelings. Online social media is really popular ways of connecting. At the same time, predators know that that is a way that children are also connecting, so they get into these chat rooms and pretend that they're different people, ages, and knowing what to say to kiddos to get them, you know, communicating and, you know, off and all that other stuff that can happen, like trafficking and all that. So it's a really scary time right now, shutting down, not using like our brains. So doing puzzles and keeping your brain active, because if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So while yes, there's a lot of sleeping going on, it's not that they're being lazy or just sleeping all day. That's a sign of depression. They don't know what else that they can be doing, or they're missing their friends, they're overwhelmed with things, less time with parents, more invalidating things happening. Kiddos are really struggling right now.
Hey, Ms. Hyman, there's a very instructive slide that talks about the shame and grief. Yeah, Ms. McGirt, could you talk a little bit more about this cycle here?
Yes, so let's say that you're really sad because you can't see your friends. And then you have that along with, okay, my parents seem like they're upset with me because I'm not getting all of my chores and things done. I'm not meeting the demands of my school workload. So then all the emotions that you're feeling from so many different areas of your life is starting to weigh on you more. And then you go into this panic, like, okay, so am I gonna graduate? Am I gonna be in trouble? What can I do? You start to freak out, trying to figure out how to maintain your new life. And then some people can start engaging in self-harming behavior. So meaning like burning or cutting, because you can choose when and where you hurt. And that can be a release. It's like, okay, talking down to yourself, negative self statements that you're saying, like, you know, you're too stupid, or if you were X, Y, and Z, you would have gotten it. And then it goes to that temporary relief of all of that, like, okay, so I got that all out of the way. I feel a little bit better, but now because of what I've done, I feel bad. I feel guilty, or I'm ashamed of what I have done. And then because I'm ashamed of what I have done, then the emotions start again. Now I feel even worse because I did these, and then it just keeps on going and going and going. And some facts about mental health with adolescents is that half of all mental health starts around the age of 14. It affects 19% of adults, 20% of adolescents, and 13% of children each year. So it's more prevalent than many may think that mental health is a big concern. 3 causes of death among the adolescent group is accidents, suicide, and homicide. I think that is really important to talk about, especially at this time, because when you're unable to cope, you think, okay, what can I do now? You feel hopeless. And sometimes it's like, if I would just go away, if I didn't have all of this, it's not going to get better. Or you start to engage in risky behaviors like speeding around in your car, just driving fast to feel something, where you may be feeling numb just to get some kind of feeling, and accidents happen. People also engage in risky sexual behaviors as a way of coping and getting that out. And then along with that cycle, then the shame, the grief, and all of that comes, and then it exacerbates things even more. Lana or Phoebe, do you guys have any input about emotional suffering or the way you guys or your other peers may be coping at this time?
I think that kind of the ways we talked about earlier with coping with like feeling really overwhelmed or depressed or sad is that, like, I think for me, the thing that helps the most is reaching out to my friends. Like, my friends and I have a really big, like, they're just like my biggest support, and we've made ourselves available to each other so that we know we can talk to them. And so just like, I feel like a way that works for me is just knowing that my friends are there and knowing that I'm there for them. And I think that that's really important, because also with your friends, you can feel comfortable talking to them about things maybe you don't want to talk to your parents about, or you don't have an adult you trust you can talk about. And I feel like that if you have a really good group of friends, sometimes people don't have as good of friends who are maybe bad influences, but I think if you're lucky enough to have a group like that, talking to them can be one of the best ways to cope, and it can honestly help a lot because they're your age too, so they have a little bit more like understanding of what you're going through.
Yeah, I think that things like that come really fast, especially panic attacks or anxiety attacks. Sometimes it doesn't always start from the top of the wheel and keep going. Sometimes it just is like you're fine, you're happy, and then bam, it hits you, and you don't know how to react. And even if it doesn't go all the way to self-harm, it's very serious. And, if you feel like you need to talk to somebody, you should. And you shouldn't be scared. You shouldn't think that your friends will look down on you or your peers will look down on you. For me, my coworkers have been a big support. I'm very much face to face. Let's talk, let's sit down together. So being online has been kind of hard for me because I feel like I'm not as connected with my friends. But my coworkers, I get to see them every day, and they are very helpful to me. And being able to sit with them and say, hey, how are you doing? I'm not doing too well. Things can go up and down very quickly. You can be happy 1 second and then sad the next. And I think that people don't want to open up because they think, oh, my problem isn't that big, or, well, I am happy, but not right now. So it's just don't worry about me. I'll get over it. And sometimes we can't get over stuff like that, and it is good to open up to people and to find the people that you can open up to, and just reach out and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, do you mind if we talk for a little bit? I just need some company. Just being able to do that, I think, is very important.
Excellent. And what would you guys do if you've had this experience when one of your friends comes to you with something really heavy? How do you help others through it? What are your suggestions for that?
What I've always done is I've just made sure all my friends know that no matter what it is, I'm always there for them. Like when we were face to face, if my friends came to me with something, I would go pick them up and we would go somewhere and just talk it out. But now since we can't do that, a lot of times if it's really serious, I just like try and invite them out somewhere. Like we'll go park by each other so we can talk about it. Like just removing them from whatever situation, getting their mind off of it, and just making yourself available to your friends and making sure that they know that whatever they tell you is 100% confidential and that you're there for them 100%. And I think just like it's just elements of like what being a good friend is. I mean, just being there for them and making it known that they can talk to you about whatever they want and it'll be fine, and giving them someone to like listen.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are so worried about how am I supposed to react? What am I supposed to say back? What is my advice I'm supposed to give? But I don't think it's always about that. I think it's about the listening. Like, I'm here and I'm listening to you and I'm trying my best to understand you and feel how you feel. And I want to be able to understand you, and just listening to what they feel. And you don't necessarily even have to say, oh, it's going to be okay, or oh, can I do this for you, oh, can I do that for you. Sometimes it's just I am here for you and I am listening to you, and I don't really know how to take you out of the situation, or I don't really know what I can do for you, but I'm trying my best. So if you need anything from me, just tell me and I will be there. And I'm always here and I'll always listen to you and what you have to say, and I'll try to understand you. Because, like I said, it's not always about being able to do something for them, but just being able to understand them so they don't feel as alone.
Thank you. Kelly, Dr. Mills, Mrs. Nygaard, what have you guys experienced with students in regards to if they're coming to you with any kind of problems, concerns, because between 500,000 and 1 million people aged 15 to 24 commit suicide each and every year. What do you guys have input with that?
So I think for as a school system, first off, in a very broad brush kind of a sense, we are mandated. We as part of the counseling group, we are mandated to present the awareness each year, each cycle school starts, so students are aware that oh, wait a minute, there are support groupings within our school learning community that can support me from feeling at that point of desperation. And if at any point in time, in any bit of conversation, be it with me, be it with Ms. Hyman as a school counselor, you know, there is a process we go through if we have to get to that point of doing a suicidal ideation kind of a protocol to make sure that you know, students are not thinking about harming themselves and what have you, and alert parents. So that's in a big, broad kind of a painting. Specifically to now, in terms of COVID, each one of the administrators have taken within our alpha. So I work with through the students H through O, for an example. And for every time that I'm in the office, I make it a point of calling a grouping of students within my alpha. And part of that conversation is, like Lana was alluding to earlier, the idea of how are you doing? I'm calling you to find out how are you? And if in that conversation I'm getting on to, oh, wait a minute, this is a student who may need some emotional need or have an emotional need, I bring it to his or her counselor so that we can do some follow-up. And to close that gap, it's important to close that gap so that parents, we alert the parents, and more importantly, you know, the counselor bring it back to me to know that, okay, we've spoken to this student and here's where we are. So there's a process in terms of attachment, if you were, to get students taken care of emotionally, because I know that's a big impact at this time. and it's important for us to have our eyes on that. Ms. Hyman, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, absolutely. I really believe, when this conversation just reminds me just how important it is to build relationships. And I believe that, students are more likely to open up to someone that they trust, especially with something so vulnerable as their mental health. And so just relationship building, whether it's saying hi in the hallway or now that we're out of school, sending a message over Schoology, just checking in. Children, adults, humans, we just have to know that people care and that they can trust us. I think one of the difficult things about disclosing this information to an adult is you realize that parents are going to be brought in the loop. Anytime that there is a concern for someone's well-being, we will always share that with the family. And I think that can be a difficult thing for teenagers to grapple. Sometimes oftentimes it's going back to this chart, it's out of shame or grief, or not wanting that to be brought to their parents. I think for teenagers, kids especially, they're worried about their parents or their family's feelings. That how will it make them feel if I share that I'm suffering, if I'm hurting? Will it make them feel like they're not doing a good job? Will it make them feel like I don't know they love me? And I think so. That's one of the big things I talk about with my kids is just you hurting does not mean that you can't project that on someone else. That just has to be, this is how I'm feeling right now, and this is what I need. And so kind of just educating them on that, and that it's why it's so important for their family to know and for their loved ones to know. I think that that's really important. And when we're in the school, I think a lot of times I have, just like what Lana and Phoebe were sharing, I have friends come to me about one of their friends more often than not. So, which I think is a beautiful thing. They come to me and they share that their friend is suffering, and they think that they're worried about them. And so usually they're talking to their friends first, and then it's really brave for their friends to come and share that with a trusted adult. And I think that is, when you're worried about their well-being or whether or not they might hurt themselves, it's always just so important to share that with an adult. And I think one of my concerns that we're out of school now is just that students can't come down to the Career and Counseling Center or to the office and share that information. So I hope that they realize they can message us on Schoology, send us an email. Counselors at Emerald Ridge, we have what's called You Can Book Me. It's a website where they can book appointments, and we can schedule a Zoom appointment or a telephone conversation. But we're still available even though we're not in the building. It's just making sure that we're still feeling connected is important.
Ms. Nygaard?
So I've been in the situation where while we were in school, I needed to get some support and resources for students, and it was very much more convenient when we were at school to do that. I just walk them down and we talk about it a little bit, and the importance of walking down and talking to somebody long-term, because I'm only in the building a couple days a week. And so knowing that they could talk to their counselor about that was really critical. Sometimes I'd stay with them, and sometimes I'd leave them in their counselor's hands, capable hands. During COVID, I actually had one student say, "I'm not okay." And I didn't know what that meant, but I couldn't get them to respond. So after about 12 phone calls, we were able to get the student, get their attention and get some administrators involved, get some counselors involved, get the psychologist involved, just so that they knew that they had the help that they needed, whatever that meant. It turned out that I'm not okay didn't mean what it could have meant, but what a reassurance that all of these people were there, and they all called back, and they all checked in, and they all made sure. And so then that student had the help that they needed, even though it wasn't critical at the time, they still had access to that. And so everybody's really, really committed to making sure that the students are okay. It's just hard to know when that is happening unless they reach out. And so I was thankful that the student reached out even though it wasn't critical, so that they knew that there was help available.
Awesome. And on the next slide, talking about coping along with more information about mental health matters. You're not alone. One thing to take from that is, even though you're struggling or you're hurting on the inside and feel like there's nothing that can be done, you never know until you reach out. There's no shame in that, and you have a support system within the schools. You have, that's excellent. Booking the way to book counselors online is awesome. And so 1 in 5 adults experience mental illness, 1 in 25 adults experience serious mental illness, and 17% of youth ages 6 to 17 do as well. So even for the parents, where if you're feeling overwhelmed, like you're going to snap or you're going to just lose it, there are resources out there for you as well, through the schools, through us. We have peers, because that can get overwhelming, and sometimes it can be projected onto the kiddos or taken out on them inadvertently. So we want to be mindful of that as well. And if we can go to the next slide, there's my coping. While it's always great to cope, there's also ways to make your problem better. So if let's say we're doing nothing but coping, we find all kinds of ways to feel better in the moment. Yes. What are we doing to change our situation? So like when I work with kids, I have some parents that's like, here, fix them. It's like, but they're not broken. And as much as I work with them, if I put them back in the same environment, how effective is the work that we're doing going to be? So it becomes a whole conversation, and bringing the family involved as well. So there's emotion focused and problem focused. So emotion, like what can I do to cope with this in the moment? And problem solving, like, do I need to change my situation in any way, and how? So let's say you guys are getting all these emails. Alana, I think you're speaking about this, like all the stuff that you guys have to do with, reading novels, submitting work, things like that. When you get overwhelmed, which do you guys go to first or use most often to help you through it?
I usually do like the emotion focused coping skills first, and then I'll deal with the problem later, because I feel like if I'm really stressed out, I'll want to like immediately like remove myself from the stressor so that I can just get a little bit of mental clarity. Usually I'll go like exercise, or I'll go talk to my friends. I'll go do something a little bit just so I can get less stressed, and then I'll come back, and then I will do something like create a to-do list, or I'll try and break down the problem to make it more manageable. But I feel like I can't focus on the problem before I focus on myself.
Yeah, I definitely, when I get too stressed out or anxious, I find it really hard to focus on what I need to be focusing on. Like if I do have homework that's due and I need to be doing it, but it's stressing me out in some way, it's really hard for me to focus on that. And it's really hard for me to say, okay, I need to get this done, because it's just stressing me out so much. So I usually just do something that I enjoy, or I'll make a cup of coffee, or I'll watch an episode of a show, or, just anything I can do to just say, okay, I did that. Let's sit down. Let's revisit this. Let's do it. Get it done. And at the end, it was such an easier process because you weren't as stressed, and you kind of calmed yourself down, and you were able to focus a little bit more.
Yes, those are excellent ways to handle problems. One thing that I do, I give myself a reward system. So if I have something to, just like preparing for this webinar even, it's like, okay, gotta sit and do it. And I have all these millions of things to do. And I'm super stressed out that I have all these things to do. And so what I would do is I would sit like a little Reese's cup right at the side of my laptop. And when I knock out a little chunk, like it could even be 5 minutes of something, then I can have that Reese's cup, because I've noticed that depending on what it is, I will get lost in that fun thing that I'm doing or that relaxing thing that I'm doing. And I've relaxed for 3 hours and I stress myself out even more because I'm that far behind again. So something that can also be helpful for those who will get lost in the comfort of feeling good is implement a reward system. So after, if you have like 30 pages to read, after you read 5, you say, okay, I get to watch this episode on Netflix. And you may want to binge, but that's going to get you back to that next 5 pages or 10 pages, and then reward yourself towards the end of that. Kelly, Dr. Mills, Ms. Nygaard, do you guys have anything that you guys do when you're stressed out or overwhelmed to help you cope through it?
So one of the things that I have done also is the reward system, because I get a little bit scatterbrained. My circumstances around me is more ordered so that my brain doesn't have to be as ordered, and that helps me. So like if I am scattered in my brain, then I'll clean the area around me, because then that gives me a sense of peace and a focus. And the other thing is also the reward. And the third thing, which might sound really simple and really silly, is I drink more water. Because I find when I'm not in my normal system, so when I go to work and I'm at my desk and all that, I know how much water I drink because, you know, I have measured amounts with me. But when I'm at home, I have access to water all the time because it's in our fridge. And so I have to be more cognizant of that. And the more, I know it sounds silly, the more water I drink tends to be the more focused I get. So that helps. It's just real simple.
Okay, and there's also proactive coping. And so what can you do to maintain? So if you're ahead of the game of your schoolwork, if you're trying to lose weight, maybe eating healthy, like what can we do to keep it so that we don't get to the part where we're stressed out trying to figure out things to do? And if anyone doesn't have anything else to add to coping, we can go ahead. And so this slide, it says 4 and 5 think it's harder to admit having a mental illness than any other illness. 1 and 2 are frightened by people with mental illness. Words like psycho, nuts, mentally ill, and crazy are the most common description of those with mental illness. And mental illness is ranked as the top stigmatized illness. And this is really important because mental health has a huge stigma around it. Mental illness is, you can think of having like diabetes or asthma. It's something where the body is not functioning in, the optimal way. And so you may need to take medication to help regulate your system, just like you would take insulin or your inhaler or something like that. So one of the biggest things about people reaching out and seeking help is the stigma, like what will people think? Am I going to be judged for having a mental illness? Okay, oh, are you crazy? Like, how come you have to do that? And then what does crazy actually mean? When you think about it, people don't hesitate to say, yeah, I went to the dentist today, or, I had a doctor's appointment. What makes that different than saying, hey, I went to seek mental health? Do you guys have anything to add as far as your peers or even yourselves, if going out to seek professional help, do you think, the conversation could be just as, as good? Does that change your situation when you talk about it, even though it's extremely helpful? But what do you guys think the barriers could be to seeking out services?
So for me, when I have had students that were concerned, oftentimes it was the fear of the unknown. If I tell somebody this, what is going to happen to me? What will my parents think? What will my friends think? What will the person I'm telling think? Will this mean I'll have to go on medication? Will this mean I'll have to go to the doctor? When I go to the doctor, do I have to tell them everything? There's all those unknowns that can be really scary. And so I think that's one of the barriers that I've seen is the unknowns.
I think another thing, especially for students, is the fear of their parents. A lot of parents don't like the school counseling system. I've seen that a lot of parents think that it's pointless, or I've heard a lot of it's their job comments. You know, if they see a student, it's their job to go and help them. And so I think a lot of students are kind of scared of that. And I know at school, it's so much easier to say to your homeroom teacher, hey, I have free time. Can I go down to the counselor's office? You know, I need some help. It's so much easier to do that than, you know, reaching out, emailing your counselor while you're at home and your parents are around and they are judging, or anybody can judge. And so I think that's something that does hold students back. I do definitely think the fear of what would happen is also something, you know, will they put me on medication? Will this go on my record? You know, is this going to be who I am now? You know, I think that can also be a very big fear that just holds people back from opening up a little bit.
Yeah, that's really great feedback, because when looking at, you know, either the school system or your parents not having tools, and okay, I'm thinking at the same time, sorry, it's like, wow, but that's a huge barrier to getting the help that you may need, and the huge stigma. It's like, okay, so is this me now? How does that change you as an individual or as a person? Because I see that a lot. It's like, again, what is the difference between being okay with having to take Tylenol or something for a headache? It's okay if someone says, oh yeah, you know, I can't run, you know, I'm an asthmatic, I have to take my inhaler. But when it comes to like kiddos who are maybe a little rambunctious or moving around in class and they need to take their ADHD medications, then it's like, okay, no, you're just trying to make it something that it's not, or because you can't see it, it doesn't make it real. It's not a real illness because you can't see it. It's the same as before you go up for public speaking. You have these butterflies in your stomach for some, you may not want to speak out and you may be nervous. You can't see any of those butterflies, but it's absolutely a real feeling. And for parents, for those who may feel that, you know, it's their job, yes, it's their job to provide a service. And if they're caring, your child is getting the help. So whether it's the job or not, my question would be, what would make the difference? Because some people spend a lot of years in school just to be able to do that as their job, to help those who may not feel that there's any other alternative or any other outlet. So the stigma is really prevalent around mental health, and how can we combat that? What can we do? And on the next slide is how can we stomp out stigma? It starts with you. So some of them says be open to conversation about mental health. Like this right now, it's amazing to be open about talking about it. Take action. If someone is saying something against mental illness, can you be confident in standing up to that or challenging that? It's like, okay, so what does that mean? Or how come you feel that way? Or it makes me feel like you think I'm less than or something. How can we put a stop to the stigma so that people can reach out for help? Do you guys have any insight as to what would be helpful to begin to make this okay topic to talk about?
I feel like I think I was talking about this a little bit earlier, but something that my friends and I do is we just like make each other available to each other. And everything that we say to each other, we know that it's not going to get spread around. We know that we can trust each other, and then we always encourage each other, and we just have open conversations. Like, we know that it's safe to talk to each other because no matter what we say, like, there's no judgment. And we know that I've been lucky enough to have a group of friends that's just super open and encouraging, and like, there's just no judgment. And so I feel like one of the biggest things to end stigma around mental health would be just like removing the judgment from the situation. Because I feel like that's what a lot of kids fear when they go to talk to someone about it. And I think that just like having more open conversations and having a group of people you can trust is just really, really important.
I really like the part of this slide that mentions to see the person and not the illness. I think it's really important to externalize that anxiety or whatever feeling that you're feeling, stress, that you're not that you're not the stress or anxiety, but that's just something that you're experiencing. And that doesn't mean it's gonna be like that forever, but that it is something that you need to work through in the moment. And so not letting it become your whole part of your identity, and just really knowing that that's normalizing it. I think just acknowledging that that's a human feeling and working through it, asking for help, reaching out to someone, but not allowing it to kind of control your mind in a negative way.
Yes, that is huge. Practicing acceptance. Yes, when your friends you're able to communicate with your friends, that's excellent. What happens then to move that conversation over? Do you guys feel comfortable enough to, if you guys are talking to each other, that can also put you in a stuck place? So where if you're hearing, not that it's negative, but if it is negative and you're sitting in that and it comes around, that can also be detrimental to your mental health, because it's like it's not getting better. Like, I'm talking about it and it keeps us in this space. So what can you do to move that conversation over to, have you thought about speaking to someone? Because for you, taking that on, depending on how many friends come to you, then you're taking that on for yourself, which can weigh really heavy. And then if something does happen, it can be, I didn't do enough, or why didn't you come to me, or was I not? And then these negative messages can be coming on to yourself as well. And what would that be like? So if we can stomp out the stigma of mental health, I think more people will seek it out. Just like a myth of, mental health people are dangerous and violent, which in fact only 5% are dangerously mental ill. They're more likely to be victims than perpetrators. Other stigma myth, let's say, if you talk about like suicide, it's going to put that thought into someone's head. No, it's showing that you care, and that there are options out there for you. And so kind of like what Lana, her favorite question, when people know, how are you really? One of the things that I like to do is when people say, how's your day? Because it goes back, like people say, hey, I'm good. How are you? Oh, I'm good. It's like, okay. I say, well, what's good about it? And then a lot of people oftentimes pause, like, I'm everything. I'm like, okay, tell me one. What is it? Or I'm fine. What's fine? What's been, what is that? And, I dig a little further because I do care and I do want to know, but because it's so matter of factly and people judge themselves and others, there's a lot of judgment. And what I mean by judgment doesn't have to be negative all the time. When people say you're so judgmental or things like that, if you see someone running down the street and you see a dog following close behind, I tend to ask people, like, what would you think if you saw that snapshot? You opened up your front door and you saw that snapshot. What would you think? Well, the dog is chasing them. I said, okay, what else do you think? They're going for a run with their dog, and I get all these things when in fact, that person was on a jog. They have their headphones on. They don't even know the dog is following them, and the dog is trying to go get their ball that their owner threw. They just happen to be going in the same direction. And so when we sit and we really look at the snapshot we have in front of us, it's factual. Check it out. Like whatever you're feeling that it could be, like, I don't think you really care. Well, check it out. It's like, do you really want to know, or do you want this piece of it, or do you want this piece of it? What are you able to handle in this moment? Even when you have to go and talk to somebody, hey, do you have the mental space to listen to what I have to say, or anything like that? Check it out. Communication is super, super important. And it's one of the most difficult skills to learn. Although we do it every day, and talking, that's we're social creatures. That's one of the most difficult skills, is to have healthy communication. And so along with that, I will wrap that up to stomping out stigma. Do not be afraid. It starts with you. You can be the voice, and you can help move this along, so it's more of a natural acceptance of you are who you are, accept people for who they are, and live and let live.
Thank you, Ms. Catania. So we began our conversation with the idea of looking at what all of the responses from our student survey said to us. And as we were planning this conversation, pre-planning, we talked about, we wanted this conversation to be organic, and it was important to have include student voice and what have you. And as part of the exercise, quite quickly we recognized, wait a minute, here's an opportunity for us to be able to present some answers in the way that students are asking for them as a result of the other in the responses that Ms. Nygaard referred to. So as we close our conversation, the hope is that students and our listening community, they're hearing what their fellow students are talking about. We hope that we have imparted some aspects of knowing what to do next. I'm giving you some ideas in terms of organizations, how to self-manage, how to build your own routine and have your scheduling going. And it's important to underscore from me, I'll start with me and then I'll ask the rest of the panel to share. It's important to give yourself some grace. You know, if you have an opportunity to talk to other people about what's going on with you right now emotionally, take that. And if there's nobody else in the room, the beautiful questions allow for you to talk to yourself and ask yourself these questions. How am I doing? And what can I do to make that better for myself right in the moment? I'll leave you with that. And I will ask Ms. Nygaard for some parting words of wisdom, please.
So one of my favorites is the beautiful questions, because it puts your mind in a different direction. It sends your brain thinking about things as possibilities. And it allows you the moment to dream. It also is great to do with other people, like asking them, and then genuinely listen to them. You know, if you were the best at what you did, what would be different? Or if you knew you couldn't fail at something, what would change? How would life change for you? And so taking those adventurous steps and thinking about what might be different in my world if, that's one of the things that I would leave with folks, to say, look past your circumstances where you're at and think about something fun, something exciting, something new, something different, and reach out to people. I agree with Ms. Hyman. Social distancing isn't social isolation. Still connect with people, whether you talk or text or FaceTime or Zoom, or like Phoebe was saying, drive somewhere and be 6 feet apart in your cars. Do something where you're involving yourself with people so that you don't lose touch with what's going on around you, because we're all in this together.
Ms. Hyman, words of wisdom from you?
I echo what Ms. Nygaard just said. We're all in this together. I think if there's a positive that's going to come out of you know, just this situation that we're currently in, I think it's hopefully that it'll bring us all back, all stronger and together in the end. And I think that we just really need to lean on each other at this time and know that it's not always, we're not going to be in this situation forever. We're going to get through this. And I believe, I honestly believe that we're all going to be stronger and better for it. And I just hope that whoever's listening right now just knows that Emerald Ridge is a strong community, and we're here.
Ms. McGurk?
Yes, words of wisdom that I have is that if it does not challenge you, it will not change you. So the more difficult it is, once you get over that, you're going to be just fine. You are not alone. You have a support system all around you. Although you may not be able to change your current situation, you can change how you respond to it. And that often feels great as well. So that is my words of wisdom.
So I've left the best for last because it's important to hear from our students. Phoebe, I'm going to ask you to go last so that we can hear from Lana first.
So what I would say is nobody really knows what the future will hold. And as a student, that may be very scary. I still have one more year of high school left, and after that, who knows what's going to happen. But I'm just very glad that I have the support system I have. I'm very glad that I have my counselors, my teachers, my parents, my friends, my coworkers, anybody who's there for me, because they help a lot. And we're going to all get through this together. And if you need help, and even if you don't, even if you just need somebody to talk to, I encourage you to reach out to whoever it is, to coworkers, parents, friends, counselors, teachers, because they are willing to listen, and what you have to say is very important. So I hope you get something from this.
Phoebe? Hey, Phoebe, are you there?
It looks as though maybe her connection got lost because only her name is showing up. The video isn't showing up.
Okay, thank you. So, on the onset, we talked about the importance of this conversation, why it is necessary to have this conversation at this time. Hopefully, Phoebe can join us before we close out. But the important exercise to this is we are emotional beings. That's who we are. We're people. We rely on relationships one to another. And at this current time, the saving grace for all of us is that we have some measure of electronic to be able to communicate. Use those opportunities to chat with people and to check in and to see how things are going. And don't feel as for one moment that you're in this by yourself. This is a global impact, and it's important to know that we're here to be able to help you. Phoebe, words of wisdom from you as we close up?
Yeah, sorry about that. My laptop died for a second. But I would say it's really important, especially as a senior. One of the best things I think we could do right now is just take advantage of all the opportunities that we do have. Because I know a lot of people, a lot of source of stress, or a big source of stress for a lot of seniors especially, is the fact that we're not getting a traditional graduation and we're not getting prom. But I feel like taking advantage of the resources that we do have to make the end of the year special, like the graduation that we do get, we get to walk across the stage in the auditorium, and just focusing on the positives like that is really important because it keeps you from kind of like feeling like you're missing out. Like we are getting something and everybody is working so hard to make sure that we have something to mark the end of such a special time. And especially even if you're not a senior, just taking advantage of the resources your teachers are giving you and resources like this to make sure that you're doing okay and to make sure that anything that's stressing you out gets taken care of, and that you can start like getting back to looking at things positively and having a good time, because it's almost summer and this is going to end eventually. So I think just like taking advantage of whatever you have to make it a little bit less hard is really important.
Thank you, Phoebe. So our last slide shows the panel information. We are all part of the Emerald Ridge Learning Community, so you know to get a hold of us right away. Everybody has an email address attached to Emerald Ridge, and that might be the fastest way to get to folks at this point. I want to say that it's important that you continue to reach out, that you've put a face to this conversation today in terms of the adults, in terms of the students on the panel as well, the young adults on the panel. And this has been a first in the initiative of the Emerald Ridge Social Emotional Learning Student Lab that we've put together. So it's exciting for the work that is going to go forward, because this work will continue. And thank you so much for your attention during this time. Thank you to all of the panelists, to Ms. Nygaard, to Ms. McGirt, to Ms. Hyman, to Ms. Bradshaw, and to Ms. Martin. All the best to all of you. Thank you for your time today, and the best wishes going forward. Be safe as we continue to battle COVID-19. Thank you again. Goodbye now.